Good morning, El Paso. I have the special privilege of welcoming Dr. Isis Lopez. Dr. Lopez has a great story of going from struggles and persevering beyond her struggles into then becoming a rheumatology fellow at Baylor College of Medicine. And she's about a year away from finishing up and being a board certified rheumatologist. It's a great story. It's a story that, as I was hearing it, we have a lot of similarities. There's a lot of us physicians who had to go through a lot of obstacles, overcome a lot of obstacles, and demonstrate perseverance, which I think is a great skill set in life. And even though I personally went through a lot of tough times, it was really because of my mom that got me through. Without my mom, there's no way I would be the man I am today. And without my mom, I think I often say that if I'm a good person, if I've done great things in life, it's because of God and my mom. And I always want to make sure that the things that I do and whatever I accomplish, I'm trying to do it to make my mom proud and to make my kids proud. And so I think you'll hear a lot of this really beautiful struggle that Isis, Dr. Lopez went through, and hopefully a lot of people that are watching this can relate to this story. Hopefully this can be inspiring to the younger people who want to become physicians or just are in tough spots, that they can see light at the end of the tunnel. And even people, and not even, but like especially kids or moms, single moms, or kids of single moms. There's a lot of, these struggles, these obstacles, these are all opportunities to get better. There's no way ever that I would ever trade the tough times that I had growing up as a kid for anything, because it made me who I am, and I'm really appreciative of those learning, of those lessons. And I'll say it again, that I think that the one thing that I think is crucial to success is having someone believe in you, starting with yourself. But if you can get a cheerleader, a mentor, in my case, it was my mom, then I think sky's the limit. So to all those people out there grinding, grind it out, keep that grit, keep pushing forward, and we'll quote some Nipsey hustle and motivate. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show. Isis, and I'm not trying to be patronizing here, but I'm really proud of you. I kind of followed you along. I know we met when you were in medical school in El Paso, Texas. And can you tell us your background and kind of how you ended up where you're at now?
For sure. So my family's from Honduras. My mom and my father in the 80s, they came to the US, and I think just like many first, generation immigrants, like my parents struggled a lot financially. They used to live in the Northeast, so they struggled a lot. They decided to send us to Honduras the plan was for them to both get like 2 jobs, save enough money so that they could bring us back and then be in a more financially stable position. But that was kind of complicated. They just continued working, and we actually ended up staying in Honduras for 8 years. So there is where I lived, and I was able to be raised by my aunt. And my aunt was like, she's just like the type of woman who takes care of everybody, like people there were dying of like diabetes. HIV was really, really prevalent in my city, and a lot of people would pass away from AIDS. And so she would take care of everybody. She was like self-taught. She would wake me up at 3 in the morning and be like, let's go take care of this person. And I don't know, I guess there was something about her that knew that I liked that healing part, like taking care of people, that sacrificial part that is needed, to be a doctor. So she would wake me up at whatever time and would take me, and we would go and take care of people. So I think that kind of defined my compassionate side, my wanting to take care of people aspect of who I am. And so she was just amazing. And then I came back to the States, to Florida, and was able to finish elementary school, middle school, and then after the foreclosure crisis happened, we were actually one of the families who um, decided to purchase a home, and then we couldn't later afford it, and so our house went on foreclosure. I remember for a year going home, and every day was like a fear of feeling like everything was going to be out and we were going to be displaced. So we came to Texas because Texas was cheap. My uncle was already living here, and there's like a pretty big under connection here, and so my uncle helped us move here. And I think that overall, for most of my family members, like my siblings, most of our lives improved by moving here. And so then I was able to go to college in Dallas, and I actually joined part of a program called JAMP. So JAMP is actually like a program that helps underserved kids. So my mom's a single mom household. Once she was able to bring us back from Honduras, she had separated my father and was able to bring us back on, her own work, her own savings, and she was able to raise us on her own. And so, because of that, I was able to qualify for state funding program that helped for my MCAT, helped for my books, would give a stipend, summer programs. I was able to do like a summer program at UTMB, and the other summer program at A&M. And so it was a really great experience because I'm not sure.
JAMP is it's an undergrad, like for medical. It's like a medical leadership program or something.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. So it's like they kind of they will provide like the books, and like they even, so once you match it, like once you're able to get into the program, you're actually able to interview at all of the medical schools
in Texas?
Be able to, in Texas, all of them. Yeah.
Nice.
And so I remember, so then how I ended up in El Paso was through that. Like I had met a few students like that went to UT Dallas, and they were from El Paso, but I guess they didn't like El Paso because they didn't have really good things to say about it. And so it was my very last appointment at my very last interview. And so I remember like I was already like running tight with money, and I was like, I really don't want to go, like blah, blah, blah. But you had to go, it was mandatory. So I remember like landing in El Paso, and no one told me that El Paso had mountains. So I thought it was going to be just like flat and like barely anything there, right? So I remember I landed there, and I was just like, there was just something about that was like, I have to be here. Like I have, like the skies, how open everything was, the mountains. And so I really, really loved it. And I remember coming back from that interview, I was completely in love. And I remember telling my mom, like, I have to go to El Paso. And she was like, no, like the whole Juarez thing, she really, really didn't want me to go. And so I actually ended up ranking it number 2. And then when I found out the day that I matched, I was super, super happy. Like I was
so nice.
Super happy. And I remember my mom, instead of like, she just started crying because she was like, I don't want you to go there. And it turned out to be completely fine. Like my 4 years in med school, like I felt so safe. I would walk around the downtown. I was able to like do a lot of community service in El Paso.
What kinds of things were you involved with when you were here?
I was very involved in the transitional living center. So that's like where the women's shelter. So I would host, I think every single year in med school, I would host like a Thanksgiving dinner for them, or like on Mother's Day, we would go and like do their makeup and get the ladies ready so that they would have like a Mother's Day. So that was definitely like, I had a grant to do art therapy, but that I wasn't able to completely finish that project. But also right next to it, there was the center of like the children who would be taken away by CPS and they would be put into that home. I don't remember the exact name of it, but we would go volunteer and play with the kids. And honestly, a lot of their stories too were like, it wasn't even like their parents were trying to do anything malicious. It was just like the parents were just trying to survive, and their kids would, you know, unfortunately be taken away. So seeing that, you know, that part of the system when it's not understanding, when the parents themselves don't have the resources to be able to take care of their kids, was sad.
You know, you see, I think, like hearing your story, I think there's a lot of similar. Like, so I had like a similar story where my mom was a single mom. You know, we grew up pretty poor, humble, I guess, as it's called. It's times we didn't have food to eat for dinner. I was first in my family to go to college, and I'm from here, from El Paso, and so we were Clades in El Paso. And my dad's side's Cuban, my mom's side's Mexican, and we went up, and I spent a lot of time in the Bay Area with my tia. So I live with my tia too. So she kind of instilled a big work ethic. Her and my mom were just like working machines, and it was because of them they ended up following my way to college. And we had, I guess, there's a lot of similarities, and we lost our house too. When I was little, we didn't have a place to live, and for us, luckily, we had my abuelita. My abuelita took us in, so we were homeless for a little bit. And I think that these kinds of stories, actually, I didn't know any of this stuff about you, so I think that's really awesome. I think it's a testament to your strength and your perseverance, because medicine is not for the weak, right? Like it's a hardcore field by itself, let alone when you have all this other stuff, this other baggage that comes with it. And I think though it only makes you a better physician, right? Like there's all these like obstacles that you got to get through, but then in the end, it kind of makes you a little bit more empathetic for your patients, because
for sure,
right, you're not just kind of like talking down or whatever. You're a little
exactly,
bit more
and you understand like the type of struggles, and I think that's something that like a lot of times we see our patients who they don't take the best care of themselves, you know, and instead of coming from a judgmental aspect, like when they can't even know where they're going to live for months to month, sometimes their own health is not at the top of their priority, when they can't even secure, you know, just living resources. And so knowing that, and honestly, although like a lot, like being in medicine too and meeting other doctors, I really don't meet like not even Latino doctors that have a similar story like this. Like even like Latino students who are like born and raised in the US, like I mostly meet like international IMG doctors who matched here. Like in my own
that's
journey,
that's a different kind of group, right? The IMGs, IMG means international medical graduates. Usually IMGs, tend to be, there's a generalization, they tend to be a little bit wealthy.
Yes.
And the background's totally different. And I remember interviewing, oh man, I got so, it was rough. So I went to med school. What years were you in med school?
2013 2013 to 2017.
All right. So I interviewed in 2000. I'm a lot older than you, but I interviewed for med school in 01. So I went to med school from 02 to 2006. I went to UT Southwestern, and I interviewed. I was living in the Bay Area at the time when I was applying in California, and I remember the medical schools would put me to interview. I mean, I think they were trying to be nice, but they would put a Latino physician there to interview me, and those were by far the most judgmental, toughest interviews I had, because a lot of them were IMGs, and so they came over and they did not understand the struggle. And it was, I wasn't trying to get points because I'm Latino. That's not that's not what it was. But I had a story that I think was, and I didn't know. Like I think when I went to college, I had this idea that everybody went through my struggle. It was this whole negativity to it. And then I found out that all my classmates.
And then you find out people didn't have like any similar struggle.
No.
Yeah, I don't even talk about like really my life and this. This is why like stuff that like I'll, my close friends and stuff, but like the general friends, I don't, because a lot of times it's like completely different. Like their parents would give them like calculus lessons when they were like young. Like even in college, I would find out how different. Like, oh yeah, my parents have this like all this money waiting for me, like in case something happens, or they would teach them like calculus, or they were just very involved in like summer programs and this, and then you find out how in a way we're very self-sufficient when we have to come from that and get to a level. And I think it takes a special kind of like perseverance that's almost like you see the obstacles, but you have to not really care about them to just keep going.
And I think like this is not a diss at all for kids who have those kind of resources, or for parents. And parents are doing what they got to do to take care of their kids.
Because my kids will have those resources. So.
Exactly. and so good. Yeah, I kind of see it from their side, but no, absolutely. And I think that the word now, I think there's like this word going around. It's like grit, right? Like having the grit to get through and grinding, as they say now. And it's a skill set that I think is unique, but it's also a big gift, I think, for us that not a lot of kids had growing up. I think that's a real inspirational story, Isis, that you have. I'm hoping that there's other like young Latinas, and I don't know that many. I wish there was a lot more, because you're specialist. So how did you get into the field you're in, and then tell me what that process is like?
Yeah. So I think in high school I took like a immunology course, and I just like loved the immunology aspect. And then I think when I was in college, I was like, I want to take care of people with like autoimmune diseases, but like maybe mostly women. Like I would, and somebody told me about like a field of rheumatology, and so that idea was kind of implanted in college. And so I started researching what rheumatology was. Rheumatologists take care of autoimmune diseases that affect your connective tissue, so your joints, your skin, virtually any organ. And so patients like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, myositis, the spondyloarthritis, and just various autoimmune diseases that are some are very rare in the general population. And so in med school, I was able to work with some rheumatologists in El Paso. And so I just loved how it's very general. So I continued the idea, and then in residency still, I continued.
Where'd you go to residency?
I want to do rheumatology. I went to Jackson, University of Miami in Jackson in Miami. And it was a great experience. I mean, it definitely was very work intensive, and
a great county hospital, right? You got a lot. I mean, that's the key. Jackson
Yeah, I
Memorial.
think it's the first or second biggest county hospital in the whole U.S. I think
Yeah.
second biggest county hospital. And so it was really busy, very
Good.
complex patients, and I just love that with rheumatology, you don't really lose any of your internal medicine. So it's like, and that's what I love because when my patients come, one of the things about being a specialist was that I didn't want to like if they told me something was wrong with like the skin on their back, like it would make me feel bad to be like, oh, I can't look at it because like I don't have time, like that.
Oh,
Like with cardiology, like not cardiologists are great and amazing, but it's a very specific field.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so whereas in rheumatology, like I have to look at their scalp, their ears, their
Yeah,
nose,
yeah.
their
I'll
mouth,
tell you,
everything.
rheumatology, rheumatologist. So where are you? So you're in Dallas. Where are you in Dallas?
No, I'm actually in at Baylor in Houston.
Oh, you're Baylor, Houston. I thought you
Yeah,
were in
yeah.
Dallas. Oh, sorry about
No,
that.
no. It's because
Okay,
I was
so
in
that's
Dallas not that long ago
oh, okay. So you're at Baylor,
for
Houston. All right.
visiting.
So super awesome program at Baylor, and I think, and this is my personal opinion, is that the two smartest types of doctors are rheumatologists, number one, and number two, nephrologists. I think they're definitely undervalued, but
For sure.
by far the most heady cerebral doctors. So when I was in med school at Southwestern, we had this thing called potpourri. I don't know if you
Hmm.
ever if you ever heard of that or not, but it's like grand rounds essentially. But it's like it's a pimp session with a physician. It's putting the attending. It's a pimp session for
Hmm.
attendings and residents too, but it's mostly for the attendings. And I remember it was a big auditorium. It was like 250 people or something.
Hmm.
And they bring down this rheumatologist and they're asking him this question about so the old Parkland and Dallas, the Children's Hospital, they're connected with a basement. And so they're talking about this one lady who showed up for, I think, I can't remember the exact case, but I think she was like tired or something. And so she took her kid, who was yellow, and took the kid to the emergency room at Dallas,
Hmm.
and then took the basement pathway up to Parkland ER, and then checked herself in or went to the ER. And
Hmm.
then the rheumatologist, they're asking these questions. He's like, well, actually what happened was, so he ended up diagnosing both the kid and the mom with G6P deficiency. And then so the mom got parvo, and so everybody
Interesting.
got
Yeah.
on their feet and was cheering this guy because it was such an awesome like case, and that he worked it out so awesomely, and
Yeah.
I
That's
think he
so.
was the chief of the VA or something. But anyways, that's when I fell in love with that's when I it cemented in my mind that rheumatologists were like the best. So what year are you in? How many years is rheumatology, and what year are you in
Yeah.
nephrology?
So I guess so. It's 4 years of college, and then 4 years of med school, and then 3 years of internal medicine. Once you finish internal medicine, you take your board exam, and you apply on your second year of internal medicine residency. You start applying for fellowships where you want to go. You interview, and then you match your third year. And then rheumatology is 2 years of training, and then after that, you're completely done with your training. So that's after 13 years, you're done with your training, and
That's
you're
it.
a full blown attending like
Yeah,
Dr. Maspons.
yeah. So what are you gonna do? So this is your last year?
Yeah. No, no, no. It's actually my first year. So I'm finishing the my first year. So I still have another year after this.
So when you're talking about your field, like if you're talking to your tias and your tios at home, or
Hmm.
you're going back to Honduras, what do you tell them that you do? And then how do you what do you who are the kinds of people or the kinds of patients that should see you?
For sure. So it's really hard to explain rheumatology to family. Usually, if I say, "Oh, lupus," they'll be like, "Oh, lupus," so that they'll know.
They've
Even though
heard
they
it,
won't
yeah.
really understand lupus, they'll be like, "Oh, okay." Or, but a lot of times they think like that I just take care of OA. Um,
What's that?
and
What is that?
like osteoarthritis. So
Osteoarthritis,
just which is like the wear and tear arthritis that we see a lot in it's in our patients. But yeah, I usually take care of inflammatory arthritis, but it's really hard to explain that. I try, but a lot of times they're just like, okay, whatever. Like,
yeah,
you're a doctor, I don't care. But
so is there anybody in particular, like if it's somebody who has like swollen knees, or somebody who gets like,
yeah.
like who would be the person? Because I think what happens is that as a community, so the focus of this, this was awesome. Hearing about your story, and I think these are all really important things for like the youth trying to be going into medicine, and so that's super awesome. And I think that other parts to us talking is letting the community know who should go out and see a rheumatologist. Sure. And so, like, is there somebody like, hey, if you have joint pain in your fingers, or like, is there anything in particular like absolutely you need to see a rheumatologist? Who would be those kind of people?
So I would think, it would be important to consider being seen by a rheumatologist if you're waking up in the morning and you're having either swelling or even stiffness that lasts greater than 30 minutes. And you have to take ibuprofen, or you have to go and take a warm shower in order to feel better. And usually the joints, so it can be the wrist here and then these as well. Yeah. If you have pain in these, that's less concerning. But if you have pain there, or if your fingers look completely swollen and they start appearing like almost like sausage type of digits, then that is concerning. Another thing too is a lot of people think that lower back pain when you wake up in the morning is normal. But if you're a young man who is waking up with a lot of back pain, can also occur in women. If you're waking up with a lot of back pain and pain around your buttocks area, and again, it lasts like 30 minutes, greater than 30 minutes, maybe up to hours, you have to take ibuprofen. I would definitely talk to your primary care doctor and see if, they can order labs like inflammatory markers, just basic ones, and then see if you're having any inflammation that's happening in your body. But things like that. Also, if you're having any oral ulcers, vaginal ulcers that keep occurring.
How do you describe? I have a really hard time talking to my patients to say, when I say ulcers, nobody understands what I'm talking about. And I had to say,
in Spanish,
llagas. I mean, I tell them llagas, but even still, because I deal with kids, and even so, they're like, "What's that?" And no one's ever seen. Yeah, it's kind of hard to what is there anything that how you describe llagas, or like ulcers or anything? Is there any kind of word or anything like that?
Yeah, I think I probably don't say it right. Yeah, I say sometimes I say like lesiones.
Lesiones. Yeah, sure. No, I'm just curious. All right, sorry about that.
And then they're like, no, or sometimes too with these, they're not painful. So even if they say no, they probably don't feel them. So it's like that. That's why, and it's hard with COVID, because when everybody was wearing their masks, and they're saying like, don't tell them, like, unless they like they're hurting.
Oh yeah. For sure.
So but looking inside to examine is important, or the patients can using a mirror, if they feel anything in there, they can see.
I think that the other thing that's really important, at least being selfish about this, for me, is to have rheumatologists that I work closely with, because there's a lot of overlap with rheumatology and gastroenterology. So especially, you had mentioned vaginal ulcers, and I was thinking about Brichette's sweet. Yeah. So like, who owns, or like who's the captain of that kind of management? It gets to be a little bit tough.
It is tough.
It's tough, but it's always great. I mean, it would be really awesome. Is again, speaking selfishly, for you to come back to El Paso.
I know, I want to,
because there's such a need for you. People like you, especially, you would be the like super awesome to come back home, or your adoptive home, I guess.
It is my adoptive home in the U.S. for sure.
is there anything? So there's a segment I like to try to tie in called dichos de abuelita, or you know, is there anything that your family would tell you growing up to be like, you know? So I always talk about the hemorrhoids one. So my abuelita would say like, no te sientas en la calle caliente porque te salen hemorroides, or you know, like no salgas. I think that for me, I can think about rheumas. There's like a rheumas one. Like everybody has rheumas. You know, like my mom, es que son las rheumas. So like whenever it's cold, like everyone has like stiff joints or like pain or anything. Is there anything like that you can think about? Like,
no, I can't really think anything that's related to
no, dichos. Anything like growing up that your tias would tell you, they're like, you know, that maybe that like it's kind of medically, you know, like I don't know if you notice here in El Paso, like even if it's 70 degrees, everybody wears blankets. Like you see little kids and like they're covering their mouth because if they open up their mouth, they're gonna get a cold. Have you seen that? Did you ever see that when you were here?
I've seen that. And actually, yeah. When that was actually a topic of like a little discussion I got with my mom, because her boyfriend was out in the cold and he was having like upper respiratory tract symptoms. Like he was having like a cough and his throat hurt, and he was like, no, it's just the cold that got to me. I'm like, it could be COVID. Like you need to go and get tested. And so that was a whole debate because he's like, I know my body.
But interestingly, now, so thinking about all the families who cover their mouths when they go out, now everyone wears masks. So I wonder if look, thinking back, like rancho remedies, you know, like people were covering their mouth to not spread germs in, you know, so like I always think that there's like these dichos or things that people do that there's actually like some public health ties to them. Yes. You know, and then maybe that kind of got lost throughout the time, but I think it's there.
For sure. Like, I mean, in Honduras, we used to do all types of remedy. Like I remember I used to put pollen into my cereal, like every day.
That sounds like a hipster breakfast.
I know, right? We used to eat shark oil because I used to live right by the ocean. So we used to like buy shark oil from, I guess, a man who would make it. And it was supposed to be good for our asthma because all of us, we were asthmatic kids. And so they would just, or like, just like various home remedies that we would take. And my asthma was pretty controlled up until I moved to El Paso, actually.
So you stopped taking shark oil?
Up until like my late 20s, that's when my asthma, like the shark oil cured me for like 15 years.
I want to be sensitive to your time, and thanks for joining us in the morning. Thanks for telling us about your story. That's really inspirational. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of young ladies, and let's say that I have a little girl, and I'm a lot more sensitive to just having positive female role models is really important. And thanks for being a great role model.
Thank you so much for having me here and for being a role model for Latinos who are here in the U.S. and for us to stand here and say, you know, if you guys want to go into medicine, do it. Because we definitely need more of us.
Absolutely. And Isis, I know you have you're doing social media. Could you tell us what your handle is or how to find you on social media?
Yes. On Instagram, it's at Dr. Isis, ISIS, and then V that's my middle name, Vanessa. So Dr. Isis V. So that's my Instagram, and that's the main one that I use. Okay.
Thanks. I follow you on Instagram. I think it's really it's super awesome presence that you have, and thanks for doing that. Okay, so
Thank you.
anytime you need anything, easy to send me a text or whatever.
Okay,
we're always
for
happy
sure.
to help in any way that we can help. Fatima and I we want to help you succeed.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me on the show. This was awesome.